Drawing wings that look good and functional requires a decent understanding of how they work, things like how they fold in and how the feathers overlap. This video will mostly cover feathered wings since they're arguably the most complicated, but it'll include relevant information for other types as well. The anatomy of wings becomes a lot easier to understand when you just think of them as arms, which is what they pretty much are. They have a shoulder, elbow, and a wrist. The comparison to a human arm is especially clear for bat-style wings, where they have a small thumb at the top and then long, webbed fingers that stretch down. To help yourself commit this to memory, you can practice by drawing human arms on winged animals. Alternatively, you can also draw wings on humans, although you do need to keep in mind that people are able to move their arms in ways that animals can't, and so the translation won't be perfect. When a bird folds in its wings, the arms tuck in like this, in sort of a goofy T-Rex or chicken dance position. A bird wing as a whole is mostly feathers. The arm itself takes up a pretty small portion. I find it helps your understanding of there being a little arm underneath all the feathers if you emphasize this armpit gap, a space between the body and the wing feathers. It's easy to incorrectly think of the wing being attached to the body in this area, since on a lot of birds this gap is more closed, but that connection really only exists farther up where the actual arm is. There are names for every distinct section of the feathers that you can learn, but above all else, I think the most important distinction is between these three levels. At the top, there's the most dense layer of small feathers that wrap around about where the arm is. You're better off not drawing each individual feather here, and instead just implying the feathers with some subtle line detail to show the texture. The next level below that has feathers that are a bit larger and more distinct, and finally, below that is where the feathers are the largest and the least dense. At the tip of the wing is where there are feathers, called the primary feathers, that are the most large and that can have pretty big gaps between them. The other way to split this up is roughly in half vertically, starting at the top where the wrist joint is. This split is important because these parts move separately and overlap each other when the wing bends at the wrist. This example is showing the back of the wing, where the half closer to the body overlaps on top of the wingtip half. This overlap matters for drawing closed wings because the wingtip half always folds underneath when the arm tucks in. At the top of the wing, just past this split, is where the top, dense section of feathers can sometimes have a few more distinct feathers sticking out. I like to draw one feather here breaking the silhouette and think of it as a thumb. It helps me remember that this is where the equivalent of a hand is in the skeletal structure. The individual shapes of the feathers can be round, pointed, or squared, and a single wing can have a lot of variety. There's often more rounded feathers near the body and more pointed at the wingtips. The feather overlap always goes consistently in one direction. On the back or outside of a wing, the overlap travels outward, and on the inside, you'll see the feathers overlapping inward. Most people probably won't notice if you get this wrong, but I still think it's useful to know, and the outside travels outward and inside travels inward thing is how I easily remember it. The overall wing shape will vary based on function. For example, short round wings, like you might see on smaller birds, are for flapping and quick maneuvering, but not so good for gliding. Some other shapes are bigger and boxy, like eagle wings, or long and pointed for especially fast and or long distance flight. I like to give extra consideration to the top curve when creating these shapes. You'll see C curves going up or down, as well as all sorts of S curves. Looked at from angles other than straight on, you can see that wings are very flat, only slightly thicker where the arm is. This makes them look very narrow at certain angles. And because bird wings are mostly feathers, they're also very bendy. These traits combined is what gives so many people trouble drawing them. It helps to start with quick gestural drawing before getting caught up in any detail. Don't think too hard about anatomy yet, and instead just focus on creating flowing, bendy, and two-sided shapes. When you get into detail, one way to make feathered wings look really nice is with ambient occlusion, adding these really dark nooks under some of the feathers. You can eliminate lines completely and use only ambient occlusion triangles. It's still clear that these are feathers without them all being fully outlined. In addition to bird wings and bat wings, there's alternatives that you might find useful for doing creature and character design. Bugs, of course, have very unique wings, and pterodactyl-style wings are an alternative to bat wings for dragon-like creatures. Instead of just a thumb, they have 3 fingers sticking out at the top. Here's a video I have for the motion of flight. Thank you to everyone supporting me on Patreon, and thanks for watching.